Good evening. Tonight, we are going to spend a quiet evening in New York City on a calm, rainy night. Outside, the streets are wet. Yellow taxi lights reflect softly on the pavement, and rain falls slowly over the city. Inside a small coffee shop, everything feels warm, peaceful, and safe. Take a deep breath. Relax your body, relax your thoughts, and enjoy this slow English story. The coffee shop stood on a quiet street in Manhattan. It was not a famous cafe. It was small, simple, warm, the kind of place people visit when they want silence, comfort, or a little escape from the busy world outside. Rain touched the windows softly. Tap, tap, tap. The sound mixed gently with soft jazz music playing through old speakers near the counter. Warm yellow lights filled the room. The wooden floor creaked quietly when people walked. The smell of fresh coffee and sweet pastries filled the air. Outside, New York City continued moving fast. Cars crossed the streets. People hurried under umbrellas. Bright lights reflected beautifully across the wet roads. But inside the cafe, time felt slower, much slower. Near the window sat a young man working quietly on his laptop. A warm cup of coffee rested beside him. Steam rose slowly into the air. Next to the coffee, there was a small notebook filled with ideas and notes. The man looked tired, but peaceful. He wore headphones around his neck and occasionally listened to the rain outside. For some reason, the rain helped him think clearly. The cafe helped him feel calm, safe, focused. A waitress moved quietly between the tables. She smiled kindly at each customer. Nobody inside the cafe spoke loudly. Everyone seemed relaxed, comfortable. A woman near the corner slowly turned the pages of a book. An older man drank tea while looking out the window silently. Two friends near the counter spoke softly about their day. The atmosphere felt warm and peaceful, almost dreamlike. The young man looked outside again. Rain covered the streets of New York. A yellow taxi stopped at the traffic light. People crossed the street carefully. Far away, he could hear the sound of a train moving underground. The city sounded softer tonight, gentler. The man slowly opened his notebook. On one page he had written, "Things I Want in Life." Below the title, there were simple words: peace, freedom, health, time, happiness. Nothing expensive, nothing complicated, just simple things. He stared at the page for a few seconds, then he smiled quietly. Sometimes people spend so much time chasing success that they forget about peace. But moments like this reminded him that peace mattered too. The waitress walked toward his table again. "Would you like another coffee?" she asked softly. The man looked at his empty cup and smiled. "Yes, please." "What are you working on tonight?" she asked kindly. He looked at the laptop for a moment. "Just life," he answered with a small laugh. The waitress smiled warmly. "I understand," she said. A few minutes later, she returned with a fresh cup of coffee. The smell was rich and comforting. The man wrapped his hands around the warm cup. Outside, the rain became stronger. Water moved down the window slowly. Streetlights glowed beautifully through the rain. Everything looked cinematic, like a quiet movie scene. The jazz music changed softly. A slow piano melody filled the room. The atmosphere became even calmer. The young man closed his laptop for a moment. He simply sat there, listening to the rain, listening to the piano, listening to the soft voices around him. Sometimes silence can heal the mind, especially after busy days, stressful days, heavy days. The coffee shop felt like a small, peaceful world hidden inside the city, a place where people could breathe slowly again. The man noticed a couple sitting near the window. They were not talking much. They simply sat together quietly while drinking tea, and somehow their silence looked peaceful, not uncomfortable, not empty, peaceful. The young man smiled softly again. Modern life often feels loud. Phones, notifications, traffic, pressure, deadlines, people rushing everywhere. But tonight, inside this little coffee shop, everything felt different. Slower, warmer, human. The rain outside continued falling steadily. The streets of New York looked beautiful under the lights. Cars passed slowly through puddles of water. A bus stopped nearby. People entered quickly to escape the cold rain. The cafe door opened softly again. Cold air entered the room for a brief moment. A man wearing a dark coat stepped inside. He removed his umbrella carefully and looked around the cafe. Almost every table was occupied, but the atmosphere still felt peaceful. Nobody seemed bothered. The new customer ordered hot chocolate and sat quietly near the back wall. The young man watched him for a moment. It was interesting how strangers could share the same peaceful space without speaking. Everyone carried different stories, different dreams, different worries. But for tonight, they all shared the same warm cafe, the same rain, and the same quiet music. The man opened his notebook again. This time, he wrote something new. Slow down. He stared at those words carefully. Slow down. Sometimes life moves too fast. People move too fast. Thoughts move too fast. But rainy nights like this remind us to slow down, to breathe, to rest, to enjoy simple moments. The young man took another slow sip of coffee. It was warm and comforting. The cafe lights reflected softly on the dark wooden tables. Outside, the rain slowly became lighter again. Some people now walked without umbrellas. The city lights shimmered beautifully across the wet streets. Far away, he could hear the faint sound of police sirens echoing through the city. New York was still awake, still moving, still alive, but inside the cafe, peace remained untouched. The man looked at the clock on the wall. Several hours had passed, but it did not feel that way. Time felt softer here, gentler. The waitress began cleaning empty tables quietly. Some customers slowly prepared to leave. The woman reading the book closed it carefully and smiled before walking out into the rainy night. The couple near the window finished their tea and left together under one umbrella. Little by little, the cafe became quieter. The jazz music continued softly in the background. The rain became gentle again. Tap, tap, tap against the windows. The young man finally closed his laptop completely. He looked around the cafe one last time. The warm lights, the rain, the music, the peaceful silence. He knew he would remember this night for a long time, not because something extraordinary happened, but because sometimes ordinary, peaceful moments become the most beautiful memories. He stood up slowly. He placed money on the table and picked up his coat. Before leaving, he looked outside once more. Rain covered the city with a soft silver glow. New York looked magical at night. The waitress smiled warmly. "Have a peaceful night," she said softly. "You too," he replied. The man opened the cafe door. Cool night air touched his face. The rain had almost stopped now. Only a soft drizzle remained. The streets reflected thousands of lights. The city looked calm, dreamy, beautiful. The young man walked slowly into the quiet New York night, while the warm memory of the cozy coffee shop stayed peacefully inside his mind. Now, take another slow breath. Relax your shoulders, relax your thoughts, and enjoy the peaceful sound of rain on a quiet night in New York City. Good night.